This video will help you decide whether Kaiserpunk is the right game for you. We'll start with a 60-second, too long didn't read summary of the game, so you can tap out early if it doesn't appeal to you. If you're still intrigued after that, we'll take a detailed look at what you actually do in the game, while also discussing the learning curve and whether you can pick it up with a nice discount. Basically, I can guarantee that by the end of this video, you'll be able to make an informed decision. Set between World War I and World War II, you build housing, streets and factories so your workers can produce goods that are primarily used to fulfill those workers' needs. Doing that will attract even more workers and increase the amount of tax they're willing to pay. Once you're turning a profit, you churn out military equipment to create and supply armies that romp across the global map in real time. The city building is grid-based and detailed, including many different resources to extract and goods to manufacture. Building placement is important to ensure efficient transport of materials, as well as providing your 4 tiers of workers with relevant services near their homes, including water and power distribution. On the world map, you create armies with up to 8 different slots for infantry, artillery and vehicles, as well as ships and planes to help you attack and defend territory. So if you like the sound of a bazillion upgrades and a research tree that works a bit differently, political choices that affect the opinions of those around you, and ultimately building an economy that can create and supply armies to steamroll your opponents, Kaiserpunk might be your cup of tea. If that doesn't put you off, then grab a drink and get comfortable as we look through the detail of what you actually do in and what it's like to play Kaiserpunk. When starting a game of Kaiserpunk, you choose a region and city to start in, along with your name and city name, your heritage, which affects your underlying statistics, a very detailed flag creation system, then finally, the difficulty. From there, each game plays out broadly the same in real time and is a game of 2 halves, starting with your city building before progressing onto the world map while maintaining your city's economy. You start with a town centre and a handful of starting resources. Enough to build some houses for your first workers to move into before constructing wood and timber creating facilities so you can begin to construct buildings that will meet your workers' needs, ensuring more will arrive when needed, and those you already have pay plenty of tax, which is directly linked to how many of their needs your production meets. There are 4 types of worker: labourers, manufacturers, technicians, and specialists. Each set of workers has increasingly complex needs for you to satisfy. For example, labourers require vegetables and bread, followed by clothing and newspapers, so you must manufacture enough of those things. Then the other, higher-tier workers also require those things, plus more. Labourers also require public services for health, safety and education by placing certain buildings such as clinics and schools close enough to their homes. Fulfilling most or all of these needs for all of your workers is the bedrock of Kaiserpunk, and a huge focus throughout the game. Although much of your manufacturing is dedicated to keeping your workers happy by fulfilling their needs, you'll soon need to churn out military equipment so you can later form armies to defend yourself from aggressors or to be the aggressor yourself. There are many production chains with buildings that can produce several different products, but only one at a time, so you end up with multiple of each building to produce the wide variety of goods that you require. There is a logistics system to ensure products are where they need to be at each stage of the production chain, but one thing Kaiserpunk does differently is if you place 2 buildings that are in the same production chain, close enough to each other, they will share their resources without relying on your logistics trucks, placing greater emphasis on building placement. Speaking of which, it's easy to place, spin, and move around buildings in this game, which is a good thing because your industrial city will soon become vast due to the number of different production chains and goods produced by your thousands of workers, plus the sheer amount of military equipment that you need to produce to equip and supply your armies. Each building can have a number of upgrades applied, either boosting production, reducing running costs, reducing the number of workers that building requires, or perhaps increasing the effective radius if it's, say, a fire station or police station. And these upgrades can be stacked or switched around at any time to meet your current needs. The research tree is vast and works a little different to other games. You don't have a specific building that produces research points. More, every single building contributes research points to a particular part of the research tree. But some buildings contribute more than others. There are 8 different areas of the tree: housing, agriculture, manufacturing, utilities, civics, transport, morale, and military. If you want to speed up your rate of research in a particular branch of the tree, you simply need to construct more of the buildings that are related to that branch. so constructing more military buildings will increase the rate at which you unlock the military branch of the research tree. It's a really neat system that forces you to keep building and expanding while trying to balance your production and consumption, because as soon as you don't have enough workers to fuel your consumption, you're in a whole world of trouble. Once your economy is established and growing, you can begin to think about an army. Each military base that you construct enables the creation of a single battalion, which becomes one movable army that you can see on the world map. One military base equals one battalion, but each battalion can be made up of 8 different units. So one battalion could be made up of, say, 4 infantry units, 2 artillery units, and 2 armoured units. This mixture of units changes the statistics of that battalion, determining its strengths and weaknesses when it comes up against other enemy units. In exactly the same way, your naval and air bases can create navies and air forces made up of 8 units. You move these units around the world map, engaging enemies over and over until none are left in that region, so you can take over enemy territory, or indeed defend your own. Your military units need to be fully supplied with food, fuel, and ammunition produced in your city to keep them 100% effective. And there needs to be a clear line of supply back to your capital for them to remain well stocked. So it's possible to cut off an enemy's supply to their troops to weaken them. It's also possible to create static defenses and upgrades in your own territories. So once you throw all of this together, the world map combat is actually more complex than it might first appear, while also not being anywhere near as complex as a game such as Hearts of Iron 4. Actually, fighting in this game is quite basic. It's really just a basic animation showing 2 stat boxes hitting each other and seeing how much damage is delivered to each in the exchange. If you have multiple battalions, they can attack an enemy unit one after the other to wear your enemy down until their units are destroyed or you need to retreat. For those finance-focused players, your money basically comes from tax by meeting your workers' needs. The more needs you fulfill, the more tax they pay. The higher the tier of worker, the higher the tax they pay. If you need more money, you build more houses to increase your population, provided your production can meet their needs. The main expense in the game is the running cost of each building, which can be reduced with upgrades, but as long as you meet your workers' needs, finances in this game are not all that difficult to understand and maintain compared with other similar games. Diplomacy is very basic in this game. As your population grows, you enact policies which give you bonuses, but also shift your political alignment between left, right, and centre. If you meet other players with a similar alignment, they will like you more, or dislike you if you are different. Other than that, you can set up basic trades, but all in all, there's not much depth in the diplomatic gameplay at all. This game is mostly about production to fuel your armies so you can take control of more of the world map. There is a trading system in the game where you can select specific goods and state how much of each you want to have. Then a trader will occasionally buy or sell to get you closer to your chosen number. Plus, you can restrict whether you buy or sell too. It's a basic but nifty system that does just enough to justify itself, but you don't really need it to survive. Hopefully by now you have an idea of what it's like to actually play Kaiserpunk. So let's address some other more practical considerations that might affect your purchasing decision. The learning curve is pretty steep with this game. The tutorial is short, and although there is guidance at the beginning, the game soon lets you free to make mistakes on your own. If you're already used to Anno 1800, you'll get there pretty quick. Everyone else will take some time to get up to speed. But personally, I did think it worth the effort in the end. In Kaiserpunk, you can pause, speed up, and slow down the gameplay. Theoretically, there's nothing stopping you playing for 5 minutes here and there, but given how long it takes you to remember where you last left off, it's best for those with 2 hours spare per session to really get into the game. Kaiserpunk is purely a single-player experience. The game released in March 2025. Since then, it has been on sale approximately every 2 months, so if you can wait that long, you won't have to pay full price. Instead, you should be able to pick it up with a 35% discount. But all in all, even at full price, I'd say Kaiserpunk represents good value, in my personal opinion. Especially now the developers have had a chance to improve the game and look set to continue their development and support. You'll likely have already noticed that there are no DLCs for the game just yet. So with all that said, is Kaiserpunk right for you today? As always, it depends who you are and what you're into. If you love a city builder more generally, then Kaiserpunk puts in a respectable performance. But in particular, if you love Anno 1800 but wish it had armies, then you need to seriously consider Kaiserpunk, as that's basically what the game is, albeit on a lower budget, so it doesn't look quite so pretty, and it's set in an alternative history, World War I, World War II era. If you like a chunky city builder or strategy game and are willing to get stuck in, then you'll find at a surface level that the initial learning curve is a challenge, which is fun to conquer. There are also detailed menus showing all manner of statistics on your production, population, is your healthcare coverage sufficient, and many other stats to keep you statty fans happy. However, once you've broken through the initial barrier, you may find the balance on the world map leaves much to be desired. I've seen many complaints that the AI empires are simply too strong too soon, depending on which area of the world you start your game in. But of course, you can always tweak the vast array of difficulty settings to address that to a point. At first, you may think Kaiserpunk's graphics look basic, but when you start to look at the detail, it's actually a surprisingly cozy city builder, with workers going about their business on a bicycle, smoke from chimneys, and the ability to control the weather and day-night cycle. It's a surprisingly good choice for those looking for city builder immersion. But if you're looking for a game to play with friends, this game simply isn't for you. It's a decent city builder that successfully does certain things differently, but it is a solo experience. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask, or if you already own the game and have some additional information you'd like to add, please let us all know in the comments below. If you found the video useful, please leave a like for the algorithm gods, and if you enjoy RTS games, grand strategy, city builders, or simply this style of review, consider subscribing for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!